Born into a world where my last name opened more doors than I wanted, you could say I had it all set up for me. My dad's the big boss of a company you've probably seen on the stock exchange screen more times than you've cursed your morning alarm. Yes, that kind of rich. But if you're expecting stories of a golden girl draped in designer clothes and sipping champagne for breakfast, you've got the wrong story. Me, I've always kept it real, with my feet firmly on the ground. Money is nice, sure, but it's not everything. I chose a different path, one that led me to places money can't buy and experiences no gold card can fetch. Charity work, helping those in need, and living a life that's, well, ordinary. That's me, Laura. Not the fancy Laura, just Laura. So there I was, stuck in one of those typical evenings where my friend Amy decided we all needed to get out more. We ended up at this dive downtown, the kind where the beer is cheap and the lights are dim enough to hide your regrets. Amy was all hyped up, going on about some guy she met online. "You've got to meet him, Jess. He's totally your type," she kept saying. My type? Since when did she decide she knew my type? Anyway, we're there, and in walks this guy, not Amy's online prince, but another dude, Eric. He was there with some friends, looking as out of place as a cat at a dog show. He wasn't dressed to impress, just a simple t-shirt, jeans, and this easy smile that lit up the room. We got to talking, and it was easy, like really easy. He worked a manager job at a place I'd never heard of, nothing fancy, but he talked about it with this passion that was kind of infectious. "You really dig your job, huh?" I remember asking, sipping on my third beer. "Absolutely," Eric shot back, leaning in. "Every day is a challenge, but hey, I'm not here to bore you with work talk." "What about you?" Amy mentioned charity work. I shrugged, trying to downplay it. "Yes, a bit of this and that, just trying to do my part, you know." "That's cool, really cool," he said, and I could tell he meant it, not in a trying to impress you way, but genuinely. The night went on with our group mingling, but Eric and I stuck together, chatting about everything and nothing. It was refreshing talking to someone who wasn't trying to sell me on some investment or brag about their latest acquisition. As the night was winding down, Eric got this look in his eye like he was working up to something. "Hey, Laura, I know this is kind of forward, but would you want to grab dinner with me sometime? Just us?" I remember feeling a mix of surprise and excitement. "Sure," I said, trying to sound cool about it. "I'd like that." On the way home, Amy was all giggles and "I told you so." I just smiled, thinking about the evening. Eric was a breath of fresh air in my often too stale world. Little did I know how much things were about to change. It wasn't long before going out turned into hanging out at each other's places, which mostly meant my cozy apartment because Eric's roommates were a circus and a half. One evening, sprawled on the couch after devouring what might be the world's most average takeout pizza, Eric turned to me, his eyes serious, but his tone light. "Laura, how do you feel about making this a more permanent arrangement?" he asked, crumbs still clinging to the corner of his mouth. I raised an eyebrow. "You proposing we split a Netflix account or something more along the lines of a life together?" He chuckled, brushing off the crumbs. "Well, I was thinking more like a life together, but hey, we can start with Netflix." The simplicity of it, the straightforwardness, no grand gestures or dramatic backdrops, just us in our element. It felt right. Eric, if you're asking what I think you're asking, yes, 1,000 times yes. And just like that, with the aroma of cheap pizza as our witness, we decided to tie the knot. It was swift, sure, but when you know, you know. Telling our families was the next hurdle. My folks, well, they've always been about the "as long as you're happy" mantra, but this was putting it to the test. Dad with his business empire and Mom the socialite, they had visions of me settling down with someone more in our circle. I broke the news over dinner, the fancy kind where you're not sure which fork to use for the salad. "Mom, Dad, I'm getting married to Eric." I said the words quickly, almost tumbling out. Dad paused, his fork midair. "Eric, the manager guy?" "Well, That's quick. Mom simply smiled, but it was a bit tight. Dear, are you sure? This is rather sudden, isn't it? But I was firm. Yes, I'm sure. He's amazing, and we're really happy together. Their skepticism was clear, but so was their love. Well, if he makes you happy, darling. Mom conceded, and Dad nodded in agreement. Eric's parents were a whole different story. We went over to their place, a cozy little house that always seemed to smell like fresh cookies or something equally comforting. Kelly and Jason were as down to earth as they come, and they welcomed me like I had always been part of the family. Eric tells us you're setting a date. Jason asked, passing me a plate of those famous cookies. Yes, we're thinking sooner rather than later. A small ceremony, nothing fancy, I replied, trying to gauge their reaction. Oh, sweetheart, that's wonderful. We're just thrilled for you both. Kelly beamed. Their warmth was enveloping, a stark contrast to the cautious optimism of my own parents. It was clear right from the start that our worlds were different, but the common ground was the genuine happiness for me and Eric. When planning the wedding, we were on the same page. Keep it simple, keep it us. A small ceremony, close friends and family, and an open bar because, as Eric put it, if we're doing this, we're making sure everyone's having a good time. And that's how it went down. A swift engagement, not because we were rushing, but because everything just clicked into place. Amid the whirlwind, there were quiet moments, looks shared between us that said, we're doing the right thing. And we were. We really were. Living with Eric started off as everything I'd hoped for and more. We were like two peas in a pod, making our little corner of the world in that cozy, modern apartment I had rented. It was ours, filled with love, laughter, and a ton of take-out containers because, let's face it, neither of us were winning any awards in the kitchen. It wasn't long before I started noticing how Eric's parents, Kelly and Jason, had this way of dropping hints about things they liked or needed whenever they came over. At first, it was subtle, almost cute. Oh, Laura, that's a lovely coffee maker. Must make mornings a breeze, Kelly would say, eyeing our shiny new appliance with a gleam in her eye. Or Jason would remark, this sofa is just divine. Our old one's been giving me a right pain in the back, you know. Wanting to be the good daughter-in-law, I took note of these little hints. I'd surprise them with gifts here and their coffee maker for Kelly, a comfortable new sofa for their living room, and so on. Their initial reactions were always the same, a mix of surprise and a little bit of guilt. Oh, Laura, you shouldn't have. This is too much, Kelly would exclaim, her hands fluttering to her chest. But you know, humans are funny creatures. Give them an inch and they'll take a mile. Those initial protests faded away, replaced by a growing list of subtle hints that were about as subtle as a brick through a window. Dinner at your folks' place was lovely, dear. Did you see that new TV they have? Crystal clear. Ours is practically ancient. Eric would relay his parents' latest comments, oblivious to the change in their tone. One evening, after I had just dropped a not-so-small fortune on a fancy new TV for them, Eric and I were curled up on the couch, my head resting in his lap. They really love the TV, babe. You're amazing, he said, his fingers running through my hair. But I felt the weight of their expectations starting to press down on me. Eric, do they expect us to keep doing this? It's getting a bit much, don't you think? I asked. He paused, his hand stopping mid-stroke. What do you mean? They're just happy, that's all, he replied. Happy or taking advantage. I pushed back, sitting up to look at him. It feels like we're their personal shopping service. Eric was taken aback, his brow furrowing. They're not like that, Jess. They're just not used to nice things, that's all. But where does it end, Eric? It's like they've got a taste for it now, and they're not looking back, I argued, frustration creeping into my voice. The conversation ended with an uneasy truce, but it was clear we were on different pages. Kelly and Jason's gratitude had morphed into entitlement, and it was putting a strain on me. I loved Eric, but I wasn't about to become a bottomless ATM for his parents. When my dad's company hit hard times, it felt like the rug was yanked out